Hello everyone, this is Shadrach ASMR speaking. I'm making yet another philosophical rant video to give you tingles and something to think about. It's Christmas, and two of my favorite Christmas films, I should say, because they made a sequel of it because it was very good, was Home Alone. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about Home Alone 1 and Home Alone 2 Lost in New York. I am not going to address Home Alone 3 or Home Alone 4. If, at best, Home Alone 3 should be seen as simply an apocrypha or a reboot. Home Alone 4 should not even exist. That film is just atrocious. An atrocious film that means nothing to me. It's just trying to cash in, and it should not have been made. Home Alone 4 should not even exist. Home Alone 3, I'm willing to accept as a reboot or a remake that never went anywhere, or a new continuity or an alternative universe or something. But anyways, in my opinion, the only Home Alone films out there in existence are Home Alone 1 and Home Alone 2. I do not acknowledge 3 and 4. I refuse to acknowledge those two, because this film is going to focus on the first two Home Alone films, featuring the ever-talented Macaulay Culkin. And the purpose of this video is to discuss Marv and Harry. Now, before I go in, I will say that the chemistry between Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern was absolutely phenomenal. These two guys, Pesci and Stern, would make an absolutely awesome comedy duo. The acting, the unity, and the chemistry between these two stars was just extremely good. Very good casting. Very good casting in that regard. Because Marv and Harry, in many ways, they're like the Three Stooges, Laurel and Hardy. Ugh, can't stand those two guys. Total different argument. Abbott and Costello, and even the Marx Brothers. Imagine if Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern had just stuck and became a comedy duo. Those two would have been great. But anyways, this isn't about the acting ability of Daniel Stern or Joe Pesci, but more about their characters that they portrayed. The one thing that I really ask, in fact, I have a lot of questions. I've seen Home Alone and Home Alone 2 Lost in New York countless times. I even got those two films on DVD. And surprising that those two films are released together. Sorry, I'm just looking at my television screen because, stuff going on in the background. 1 second, please. But anyways, I have more questions than I do answers. What is the origin story of Harry and Marv? How did these two characters meet? How did these two characters come together? Now, I will say that in the second Home Alone film, there is subtle hints that indicate that how Marv and Harry got to New York was there was a prison riot and they escaped. Anyways, that does not explain their origins. Now, Home Alone 2, I was about to say Home Alone 1, but I'm going to say Home Alone 2. That is because this is what I'm getting at. Home Alone 2 does, whenever I say Home Alone 2, please understand I mean Home Alone 2 Lost in New York, okay? But anyways, in the second Home Alone film, the two scenes, there are several different scenes that indicate the origins or seem to illustrate something into their backgrounds of these two characters. For instance, there's one or two scenes where Marv is speaking French, very fluently, I might add, which indicates that Annie's trying to get in the shot. Anyways, as I was saying, the scene involving Marv speaking fluent French, which indicates that he must know some French. Now, although Marv is portrayed throughout both films as a bumbling idiot, he is, how should I put it to you, what's the word I'm looking for? Intelligent enough to know some French, so he's got some degree of intelligence. And Harry's origin, Harry, that's right. Harry, as in Joe Pesci's character, has more of a darker, sinister type origin. Because there's a scene in, like I said, in Home Alone 2, where Harry, Joe Pesci's character, says to Kevin, "I never made it to the 6th grade, kid." I'm kind of confused. I'm kind of wondering, what in the world was this guy's childhood like? What was Marv's childhood like? How in the world did these two men not only meet up, but what affected their lives to where they became bandits or thieves? Especially around Christmas time. Were they juvenile delinquents? I don't know. It's just that the origins of these characters is just so vague and so, put it simply, untouched. And what I mean by that is that there's no hints, there's subtle hints here and there, but there's nothing discussed upon it. And that is the one question, actually, the one main question I have about this film. Great film. It's a great film to watch. Home Alone's very funny. It was said to be the highest grossing Christmas film of all time, raking in over $500 million. Very good film. Now, in this day and age, with cell phones and the internet and what have you, a lot of things in that film could not happen today. Home Alone, that is. Very interesting film. For those of you who don't understand, it's basically about a kid, who have seen it. I'm sure a lot of us have seen Home Alone, but if you haven't, it's good. Very good film. It's basically about a kid that's accidentally left home while his family goes on a trip. I don't see how in the world that could happen, because name me one parent that would miscount their children or not know if their children were present. Of course, but that's Hollywood suspension of disbelief. But anyways, it was made in the 90s. Both films were made in 1991, 1992, and they were very good for their time. Very interesting films. And at that time, Macaulay Culkin was extremely popular. He was extremely popular kid actor. And you know how it goes with kid actors. One second they're on top of the world making a lot of money and everything. And they're popular, but then all of a sudden, they're, cast aside, and you know what happens to child actors. Now, I do remember in the second Home Alone film, there was a device called a talk boy. It was basically kind of like a audio tape recorder that was made like a camcorder, if it makes any sense. My brother had one, and it worked. It was not. It was basically to cash in on the success of the film. There was a licensed merchandise called the Talk Boy. Oh man, me and my brothers, we had one of those things, and we basically had a lot of fun with that thing. Trust me. We would talk into the tape, and we would record it back and have a lot of fun, and even record our favorite songs. Oh man, I don't even think my brothers remember that. I don't even think they even, talk about such things like they used to. They probably, what? But I think it stuck with me. The memory, anyway, stuck with me because I'm a very nostalgic person, and you know how it goes. Um, Nostalgia is very strong with me because I'm the kind of person that just thinks about fads and trends that just don't seem to have much relevance anymore. I think of new trends and fads, but that's a total different topic for another discussion. It's just, to put it simply, Home Alone 1 and Home Alone 2 are very good films. Very well made. They are classics. Holiday classics. Now, like I said before, Macaulay Culkin, he had some personal issues and he got too old to be the character of Kevin. So they made a third Home Alone film, And I didn't see that one, but I will say this. Instead of trying to continue the character, it was more of a alternative continuity reboot, if you will. And in that instance, from what I've understood, Home Alone 3 was met with mixed reviews, but it was decent. It was okay. It was pretty good in its own right. It had its own merits. I've never seen Home Alone 3, to be honest with you, because they had a new group of bad guys, a new group of burglars, and a whole new kid, and they basically made a totally different film. And in that instance, it worked. And that's why it was seen as fairly good compared to the first two Home Alone films. I don't remember the kid's actual name that was in Home Alone 3 because I've never seen that one, but I've heard of it and seen a few clips here and there. But I heard that it was okay. It was average. The fourth Home Alone film, trash. I refuse to acknowledge it. It was basically trying to reboot the film, or trying to retell the film, and I don't understand why they made it. They should have just ended it 3 films, or better still, just ended it with 2 films featuring Macaulay Culkin, because in my opinion, the only Home Alone films out there that I will watch are 1 and 2. I just don't understand why people would want to extend a franchise, because some films are good at one or two installments, and I've never understood. I can understand reboots and everything. I can understand reboots and recreations and remakes to an extent, but that's a total different argument for another day. But I will say this. But back on the original topic at hand, what exactly made Harry and Marv into the Wet Bandits. Like, does anyone know about their origin stories? Does anyone out there, and I'm serious about this, I'm very serious about this, because if I receive any comments that are off topic, or ridiculous, or ask about sardines, their comments are going to be deleted. I'm very serious about this. I want a serious answer and a serious response. It's a very serious discussion, because I'm getting tired of it, because that's another thing I'm going to address. A little, not change subject or anything, but I am very tired of people asking me about sardine videos. But back on topic. Does anyone know about the origins of the Wet Bandits? Like I said, this is a serious discussion. Or have any of you seen Home Alone? And what did you think of it? Now, I can't mention Home Alone without mentioning the booby traps. Very creative. You gotta understand the reason that Kevin utilized such traps was that Kevin's too young to have a gun. He's 8 years old. Well, unless you count the BB gun. Now, before I go any further, if you have not seen Home Alone yet, please stop watching this video. Please do not watch this video any further until after you've seen the first two Home Alone films. Okay? Because I'm going to have a lot of spoilers. Because apparently, Kevin utilizing all of his booby traps, the reason that he did such things was that he is too young to have a gun, aside from BB gun. And number two, what else did he have? Sorry, just looking at me. But anyways, very interesting stuff. And the thing is that why did the Wet Bandits, Harry and Marv, they looked... Now, I saw two videos on the topic of the real-life injuries that Marv and Harry would have suffered if this happened in real life. If this sort of thing happened in real life. And from what I understand, is that the injuries they suffered would have been catastrophic to a real-life person. And the reason that the injuries were not so bad is that we're looking at everything as though it were a live-action cartoon. Now, we're looking at everything from Kevin's perspective, basically. Because, being 8 years old, of course, Kevin is not mature enough to know about serious injuries, that these sorts of things that hurt would inflict serious injuries. In his mind, it's like a live-action cartoon. It's basically, from his perspective, he's looking at it that way. Now, I'm trying to analyze the film myself because I'm not good as Rob Ager. I'm not Rob Ager. I'm not going to try to be Rob Ager, but totally different topic there. And it's basically kind of like... It's technically kind of... I lost my train of thought because the damn cat wanted out. Like I said, it was like a live-action, in a way, from Kevin's perspective, it's like a live-action cartoon, and Kevin is basically, dealing with, he doesn't have the maturity to understand that that this sort of stuff that he's doing could cause real injuries. And at 8 years old, Kevin just doesn't have the maturity to understand this. So in a sense, we're looking at it from Kevin's perspective. But still, what is your take on Home Alone? What is your take on it? Is there any merit to Home Alone 3 and 4? Because the first two were good. And the first two are the best in my opinion. The only Home Alone films I will ever acknowledge. Now, the third one... Fourth one... Anyways, that wraps up this video.